Strong marriages are rarely attacked the way people expect. When people imagine a marriage under threat, they picture temptation, conflict, a sudden betrayal. That's not usually where it starts. Strong marriages are targeted precisely because they are strong, because unity creates resistance, because alignment limits access, because shared purpose makes people harder to divide. So the attack doesn't begin with destruction, it begins with pressure. Pressure on time, pressure on energy, pressure on attention. Responsibilities increase. Fatigue sets in. Conversation becomes functional instead of intentional. Nothing is wrong. Everything is just heavier. And that's where the shift happens. Strong marriages depend on shared direction, not perfection, but movement in the same direction. So the strategy isn't to break trust immediately, it's to weaken alignment first. One partner carries more, the other withdraws without meaning to. Leadership turns into endurance. Distance grows quietly, not because anyone chose it, but because no one stopped it. And distance always creates space. Space for misunderstanding, space for justification, space for thoughts that would have had no footing before. That's why strong marriages are targeted first. Not because they are fragile, but because they matter. Unity isn't just emotional, it's protective. When unity weakens, pressure doesn't have to increase. Opportunity does the work. And most couples don't realize what's happening until they look up and feel unfamiliar with each other. They didn't fall apart. They drifted. If you're listening to this and thinking, none of this sounds dramatic, that's the point. Strong marriages rarely collapse loudly. They erode quietly. This channel exists to slow that erosion by naming the patterns before they feel normal. Awareness changes outcomes. That's where everything begins. Here's what makes this difficult to see. Most of the pressure doesn't feel hostile. It feels responsible. Work increases, children need more, schedules tighten, energy drops, so conversations narrow. They become about logistics. Who's doing what still needs to get done. There's no argument, no crisis, just a slow replacement of connection with coordination. And coordination looks like maturity. But it isn't the same thing, because alignment requires intention, and intention is usually the first thing sacrificed when pressure rises. Not because anyone stopped caring, but because caring started costing more. This is where many strong marriages misread the moment. They assume distance is temporary, that once the season passes, everything will naturally return to normal. But distance doesn't reverse itself. It settles in. Habits form around it. Silence becomes familiar. Avoidance starts to feel polite. And slowly, what once would have felt unacceptable starts to feel normal. That's why awareness matters. Not panic, not confrontation. Awareness. Because you can't realign what you refuse to name. This is why these patterns are so dangerous. They don't feel like rebellion. They feel like endurance. People tell themselves, this is just a hard season. We'll reconnect when things slow down. But seasons have a way of extending. And when distance goes unnamed, it starts defining the relationship. Not because love disappeared, but because attention was redirected. What once required intention now runs on habit. And habits, left unchecked, quietly replace alignment. Here's how people usually realize something is off. Not through a crisis, but through absence. They stop reaching for each other instinctively. They hesitate before starting conversations. They choose quiet over engagement. Not because they don't care, but because engagement feels heavier than silence. And slowly the relationship shifts from a place of refuge to a place of responsibility. Still committed, still loyal, but no longer replenishing. That's the danger. Because marriages don't just need stability, they need renewal. This is why these patterns are so easy to dismiss. They don't announce themselves as problems. They present themselves as normal life. Busy schedules, full calendars, good intentions. And because nothing is technically broken, nothing feels urgent. But alignment doesn't erode all at once. It fades. And what fades quietly is often the hardest to restore intentionally. Strong marriages are not destroyed by one moment. They are shaped by patterns, patterns of pressure, patterns of silence, patterns of unaddressed distance. This channel exists to name those patterns early, before they feel normal, before they feel permanent, because awareness changes outcomes. That's where everything begins.